And he said, Bill, this is Art Divine. How would you like to become a member of the Grand Ole Opry? And that's like saying, how would you like to go to heaven when you die?
Bill Anderson, the name Nashville lovingly calls Whisperin Bill, never needed to shout to capture the spotlight. With just a voice as soft as a whisper, he could make millions fall silent and listen. For more than 6 decades, he has been not only a master country singer, but also one of its greatest songwriters, leaving behind hundreds of timeless songs for generations of artists. Yet behind the bright lights, Bill Anderson's life has been marked by sorrow. 2 broken marriages, countless lonely nights, the haunting pain of saying goodbye to nearly all his closest friends and colleagues, and the fear of being forgotten in the very world of music he helped to build. At 87, he is both a living legend and the keeper of memories from country music's golden age. Bill Anderson's story is not just one of success, it is a real-life ballad where glory and loss walk hand in hand. It is a story that leaves listeners feeling admiration, sadness, and warmth, knowing that even in a whisper, his voice and his soul are strong enough to echo through time. Early life. Bill Anderson, born James William Anderson III on November 1st, 1937 in Columbia, South Carolina, came into the world in an America still scarred by the Great Depression, as working families struggled to regain stability after the war. His father, James William Anderson Jr., was a calm yet strict man who firmly believed that discipline and personal responsibility were the cornerstones of life. He later opened a small insurance company, Jim Anderson and Company, to provide for the family. His mother, Elizabeth Lizzie Smith Anderson, was the opposite, gentle, caring, and devoted entirely to the kitchen and raising her children. In Bill's memory, his mother not only gave warmth to their home, but also instilled in him a deep conviction that love was the most enduring force of all. Bill had a younger sister, Mary Elizabeth, 4 years his junior. They grew up together under the same quiet roof, sharing childhood games and serving as each other's emotional anchor. That bond made Bill's early years, though modest, feel rich in memory. After World War II in 1945, the Anderson family left Columbia for Griffin, Georgia, and a few years later settled permanently in Decatur, a bustling suburb near Atlanta. It was there that Bill began to experience a true childhood, one filled with dreams and the budding passions that would shape his life. From an early age, Bill displayed 3 parallel loves: writing, sports, and country music. In the classroom, while other children groaned at essay assignments, Bill embraced them, often writing far more than required. For him, writing was like breathing, a way to release his imagination and turn small, everyday experiences into stories. At the same time, he proved himself a talented athlete, particularly as a left-handed pitcher in baseball. His dream then was not small: to become a professional player on a major league team. At 16, Bill's love for words brought him his first opportunity, a part-time job as a sports reporter for the Decatur DeKalb News. Writing about baseball and basketball gave him his first taste of the power of the written word. Though youthful, his articles were warmly received by the local community for their sincerity and plain-spoken emotion. Bill realized that words could connect human hearts, a realization that would later become the foundation of his songwriting career. Yet, alongside journalism and sports, another passion was quietly growing: country music. In the still nights of Decatur, Bill would cradle his guitar and softly sing along to Hank Williams or Webb Pierce. His voice wasn't loud or dramatic, but gentle, almost like a whisper in someone's ear. a way of telling stories that made listeners feel the songs were meant just for them. That tender, intimate quality would later define his style and earn him the nickname Whisperin Bill, an artist who never needed to shout to be heard, but instead compelled the world to lean in closer. Bill Anderson's childhood was not marked by dramatic upheavals, but it was full of essential ingredients: discipline from his father, love from his mother, the companionship of his sister, and three passions that moved side by side. Together, they shaped a Georgia boy into one of the most authentic musical storytellers of the 20th century. A man who proved that sometimes a whisper can echo louder than 1,000 cheers. Early career. In 1955, Bill Anderson entered the University of Georgia with dreams of becoming a sports journalist. He chose journalism because, from a young age, he had been passionate about writing and believed the profession would offer a more stable future than the uncertainty of the stage. But Bill's education didn't just take place in the classroom. To cover his tuition while also feeding his passion for media, he applied for jobs everywhere. Eventually, WGAU Radio in Athens, Georgia, hired him as a DJ. Working the night shift in that small studio opened a different world to him. A world where country music was no longer just melodies on the radio, but the voice of life itself. Songs of simple joys, devastating loss, unshakable faith, and loneliness too deep to easily put into words. Bill realized that every country song was like another news story, only told through melody. During those DJ days, music gradually took over his heart. In 1957, at just 19 years old, Bill experienced a defining moment. One night, while staying in a small hotel in Commerce, Georgia, he climbed onto the rooftop. Looking out over the town's dim yellow lights, a melody suddenly came to him, along with words that captured the beauty, loneliness, and longing of the city below. Afraid the inspiration might slip away, he quickly scribbled it down. That song became City Lights. At first, no one believed a journalism student could write a hit, but history proved otherwise. Just a year later, in 1958, country legend Ray Price recorded City Lights. The song shot to number one on the Billboard country chart and stayed there for 13 straight weeks, a rare feat at the time. For Bill Anderson, it was nothing short of a miracle. From a young man quietly writing about sports, he suddenly became a name Nashville couldn't ignore. That single hit was the ticket that carried him from the halls of the University of Georgia straight into the heart of the country music capital. In January 1960, Bill made the biggest decision of his life, leaving Georgia to move permanently to Nashville. By then, he already had a chart-topping song to his name, but he needed a foothold to go further. The opportunity came when his close friend Roger Miller, who himself would become a legend, introduced Bill to Buddy Killen, head of Tree Publishing, one of Nashville's most powerful music houses. Killen immediately recognized his potential and signed him. This was Bill's first real launchpad into the professional songwriting world. Soon after, also through Killen, he landed a recording contract with Decca Records, one of the most influential labels in America at the time. His first single as a recording artist, That's What It's Like to Be Lonesome, 1961, quickly broke into the top 20. For a newcomer with little stage experience, it was a remarkable success. Bill was beginning to be recognized not just as a songwriter, but as an artist capable of touching audiences with his own voice. Also in 1961, a historic turning point arrived. Bill Anderson was invited to join the Grand Ole Opry as its 61st member. He stood upon the legendary wooden circle where Hank Williams, Ernest Tubb, and Patsy Cline had once stood, now joined by Whisperin Bill, the young man with a voice as soft as the wind, yet powerful enough to silence the entire room. That moment not only marked the true beginning of his remarkable career, but also cemented Bill Anderson as part of country music history from the very start. Career success. By the 1960s, Bill Anderson was no longer just a young songwriter arriving in Nashville. He was quickly becoming one of the defining figures of the entire country music era. The turning point came in 1961, when he was invited to join the Grand Ole Opry as its 61st member. That honor was like a passport into country music's most sacred temple, where from then on, the golden lights rarely dimmed whenever he took the stage. And most remarkably, he has held that membership for more than 6 decades, an unmatched record. Soon after, Anderson solidified his place with a string of unforgettable songs. Po' Folks, 1961, told of his proud yet humble childhood, a song both humorous and deeply realistic. Mama Sang a Song, 1962, steeped in autobiography, was a recitation piece that moved listeners to tears and became his first single to reach number 1. His true breakthrough arrived in 1963 with Still, a simple yet heartbreakingly beautiful love ballad. The song not only topped the country chart but also surged into the Billboard Hot 100 Top 5, a rare feat for a country artist at that time. Still sold more than 1 million copies, was translated into multiple languages, and even recorded by James Brown, proof that Anderson's softness could cross every musical boundary. That string of success was reinforced by albums such as Country Heart Songs, 1962, Still, 1963, Bright Lights and Country Music, 1965, and Wild Weekend, 1966. Each album reflected a different facet of Whisperin Bill's style, a voice that whispered rather than shouted, yet commanded silence from entire audiences. In an era when many singers resorted to drama to stand out, Anderson chose the opposite path: quiet sincerity. And it was precisely that simplicity that made him distinctive. By the 1970s, Anderson entered the most prolific phase of both his writing and performing. Albums like Love is a Sometimes Thing, 1970, Bill Anderson Sings for All the Lonely Women in the World, 1972, Every Time I Turn the Radio On, 1975, and Peanuts and Diamonds and Other Jewels, 1976, showed that he remained faithful to traditional country while also finding ways to stay relevant with the times. Hits like My Life, Throw It Away If I Want To, The Corner of My Life, and especially World of Make-Believe, 1973, number 1, helped him maintain his place even as Nashville was swept by the outlaw country movement. Here, Anderson's consistency and unique identity served as a shield that kept him from being overshadowed. The 1980s, though less dazzling, still saw Anderson holding his ground with albums like Nashville Mirrors, 1980, and Southern Fried, 1983. Songs like I Can't Wait Any Longer, 1978, and Double S, 1979, made the top 10, proving that Bill Anderson was not just a relic of the past, but a steady force in a rapidly changing musical landscape. But Anderson's greatest legacy was not only in the songs he performed himself, but in the countless classics he wrote for others. Connie Smith made history with Once a Day, 1964, which spent 8 consecutive weeks at number 1, the longest run in history for a female country artist. George Strait elevated his stature with Give It Away, 2007, which earned Anderson the CMA Song of the Year award. Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss broke hearts worldwide with Whiskey Lullaby, 2004, which won a Grammy in 2005. From Connie Smith's generation to George Strait's and Brad Paisley's, stars borrowed Anderson's pen to tell their stories. And in doing so, Bill became the thread connecting 3 generations of country music. This was the clearest proof that he was not just a singer, but a historian of the genre itself. Beyond music, Anderson was a familiar face on television. He appeared in the soap opera One Life to Live, co-hosted the game show The Better Sex with Sarah Purcell, and later spent over 20 years with Country's Family Reunion. That show required no fireworks or grand stages, only singers and songwriters sitting together, singing, sharing stories, and preserving the memory of an entire musical tradition. In his role as the keeper of those moments, Bill Anderson was like a tireless librarian, carefully collecting fragments of history to pass on to the next generation. Such unwavering dedication earned Anderson countless honors. Induction into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, 1975, the Songwriters Hall of Fame, 1995, and the Country Music Hall of Fame, 2001, along with numerous awards from BMI, ASCAP, CMA, and ACM. Remarkably, even well into his 80s, he continued to be recognized. His duet with Dolly Parton, Someday It'll All Make Sense, 2021, earned him a Grammy nomination in 2022. It was proof that Bill Anderson's pen has never run dry. What truly set his journey apart was his humility. While many in Nashville sought ways to shine brighter, Anderson remained faithful to a number: 2 pencil and a blank sheet of paper, tools he called his lifelong companions. For him, songwriting required no technology and no noise, only silence and real emotion. And perhaps it is because of this that Whisperin Bill became one of the rare artists whose mere whisper could quiet an entire room. Turmoil and Shadows. Though praised as the gentle storyteller of Nashville, Bill Anderson's life was not always filled with music and light. Behind the tender songs was an artist who often faced doubt, loss, and haunting silences. As early as the 1970s, when the outlaw country wave, led by Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, and Merle Haggard, surged, Anderson's whispery style was criticized as too soft, too sweet to survive in a Nashville undergoing radical change. What might have seemed like harmless remarks cut deep, leaving him more than once considering walking away from music. For an artist who lived through his heart, being told he no longer fit was nothing short of a sentence. The hardships didn't stop there. In the 1980s, during a tour, Anderson was involved in a serious car accident. Both his legs had to be put in casts, forcing him to stop performing for a long time. For someone accustomed to standing on stage, being confined within 4 walls was a brutal trial. Yet in that enforced silence, Anderson turned inward, writing songs that reflected pain and the fragility of life, songs that carried a weight his earlier works had not. The accident that nearly ended his career paradoxically gave his music greater depth. But perhaps what haunted Anderson most was the loneliness of aging. Once surrounded by names like George Jones, Conway Twitty, Loretta Lynn, and Patsy Cline, he gradually watched as friends and colleagues passed away one by one. Farewell after farewell transformed the Grand Ole Opry stage, once filled with laughter and the warmth of camaraderie, into a space more about remembrance than companionship. Anderson admitted there were nights when he sat alone, reopening old fan letters from decades past, just to remind himself that he was still loved, that his music had not been forgotten. In an industry increasingly obsessed with flash and glamour, the fear of being left behind constantly loomed. Anderson often felt adrift as country music shifted toward pop, where whispery ballads no longer easily found space on the radio. At times, he worried his legacy would be reduced to a footnote in history rather than remaining alive in the public's memory. It was the quiet tragedy of a man who gave his life to music, yet feared a day when no one would stop to listen to his whisper. And yet, it was precisely these shadows that highlighted Bill Anderson's resilience. Accidents, loneliness, criticism, and the fear of being forgotten, none of it pulled him away from his pencil and his songs. Instead, he turned them into fuel for creation, a reminder that sometimes fragility itself carves out the deepest strength of an artist. In the silence that threatened to swallow him whole, he chose to whisper, and that whisper became an everlasting echo in the history of country music. Personal life. Behind the stage lights and the songs that stirred millions of hearts, Bill Anderson faced challenges far more difficult to resolve: his family life. If music gave him glory, marriage often brought him quiet sorrow. That private journey began with the first woman who entered his life, Bev Anderson. Bill met Bev Anderson when he was still very young, during the time he had just left college and was taking his first steps in Nashville. In the midst of searching for a foothold in the industry, he found in Bev gentleness, stability, and a vital source of emotional support. They quickly fell in love, the kind of simple, straightforward love of youth, when neither yet knew whether the road ahead would be storms or spotlight. Their wedding took place in the late 1950s, when Anderson was barely past 20 and had no idea that just a few years later he would become one of the brightest names in Nashville. In the early years of marriage, their life was full of sharing. Bev stood by him when he was only a sports writer and part-time DJ in Athens, Georgia, and continued to support him when he chose to turn towards singing and songwriting. When City Lights unexpectedly became the breakthrough that opened the door to his Nashville career in 1958, Bev witnessed firsthand Anderson's transformation from an ordinary young man into country music's newest phenomenon. Together, they built a family, and Bev gave him 3 children, the greatest pride of Anderson's life outside of music. Yet the stage lights were never easy to reconcile with the quiet stability of home. As his career exploded in the early 1960s, Anderson was swept into the relentless cycle of touring, hundreds of nights on the road, countless absences from home. Bev, left to raise 3 children alone, increasingly felt abandoned. Family dinners without a father, holidays he rarely attended, created a growing void within the household. Anderson later admitted in his own reflections that he had allowed that gap to form. "I loved music so much that I forgot I also needed to love and care for my home." Conflicts emerged as his schedule became ever more demanding. Bev, despite her efforts to hold the family together, could not escape the feeling of being left outside her husband's world. At times, rumors of Anderson's closeness with female colleagues in Nashville further strained their marriage. Though no public scandal was ever confirmed, the whispers were enough to wound Bev. Meanwhile, Anderson, consumed by career success, rarely showed the patience to explain or ease her pain. In the end, after years of struggle, their youthful love could not withstand the weight of fame and distance. The marriage collapsed, leaving Anderson with a silent sorrow and a lasting sense of failure in his private life. He remained deeply proud of his 3 children and tried to stay connected with them, but with Bev, he carried an emotional debt he could never repay. The image of a kind father, yet a husband unable to preserve his home, became a source of regret that followed Anderson through the rest of his days. If the collapse of his first marriage to Bev Anderson had left many unhealed spaces, then by the 1970s, Bill Anderson once again sought peace through remarriage. This second wife, whose name Bill never revealed publicly, remains a mystery to this day. Her identity never appeared in newspapers, was absent from official records, and was never mentioned in the stories he shared in his memoirs. That silence itself turned the marriage into one of the most enigmatic chapters of his private life. There were no scandals, no headlines, no public unraveling. The marriage simply ended quietly, fading from public view. Yet within that silence lay the essence of Bill Anderson's character, a man who always chose to protect those closest to him from the harsh glare of attention. By never disclosing her name, he preserved her privacy, while shouldering the weight of responsibility and sorrow himself. For Bill, that second marriage felt like a wound reopening upon an old scar, a reminder that love and fame rarely coexist easily. He once admitted, "I loved music so much that I sometimes forgot I also needed to love and care for my family." Perhaps that was his most honest confession, left for the 2 women who had once shared his life. After 2 failed marriages, Anderson openly acknowledged that he was never a good husband. He loved music too much, gave too many hours to tours and recording sessions, and too often neglected the presence his family needed. But he also insisted there was one role he never abandoned, that of a father. With his 3 children, Bill always tried to be a steady anchor, even if none of them followed him into music. Instead, they became his emotional anchors, the reason he kept going as Nashville changed and as old friends passed away one after another. Beyond his immediate family, Bill Anderson became known across Nashville as a great friend. He was not only a respected elder, but also a mentor and confidant. Dolly Parton once called him a trusted friend. George Jones always spoke of him with respect, and younger artists like Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss viewed him as a quiet guide, someone who knew how to listen, encourage, and offer the right words at the right time. Unlike many stars of his generation, Bill never fell into tabloid scandals. He chose humility, a quiet dedication to his craft, and a fierce protection of privacy for himself and his loved ones. His way of facing life's ups and downs could be summed up in 3 words he often repeated: grateful, thankful, blessed. To him, those were not just words but a compass, one that kept him standing steady through the golden years of success and through the loneliest nights of old age. A special bond with Linda Davis. In Bill Anderson's long journey, if the timeless songs and decades on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry made up the brilliance of his career, then his bond with Linda Davis revealed a quieter, more delicate chapter of his personal life. Linda Davis, born in 1962 in Carthage, Texas, carried from childhood a voice rich with emotion and a burning passion for music. In the 1980s, she left her small hometown to chase opportunity in Nashville, beginning not with stardom, but with modest background vocal parts for established artists. During that time, Bill Anderson, already a towering figure with a string of hits and a secure place at the Grand Ole Opry, quickly recognized the young singer's distinctive gift. He once remarked that Davis had a voice, both pure and deeply emotional, one that allows listeners not just to hear music, but to feel a part of her soul. Quietly, Anderson supported her, helping her endure the grueling early years in Nashville, a city where every newcomer faced brutal competition and the risk of being forgotten after a single stumble. Linda later rose to stardom, most notably with her duet alongside Reba McEntire on Does He Love You, 1993, a song that earned her a Grammy and cemented her place on the country music map. She would also become the mother of Hillary Scott, lead vocalist of Lady A, proving that the influence of music could flow across generations. Yet even as Linda built her own career, Nashville never stopped whispering about her relationship with Bill Anderson. Were they simply mentor and protege, or was there something deeper, unspoken between them? What stood out was that neither ever offered direct explanation or denial. Anderson, known for his discretion, limited himself to praising Davis's talent and professionalism. Linda, for her part, chose silence, focusing on music and steering clear of the gossip that could easily derail a young female artist in Nashville's judgmental climate. Ironically, this silence only thickened the veil of mystery, making their bond more talked about than any formal statement could have. Only in his later years did Bill Anderson admit part of the truth. He revealed that his silence had never been about shame or concealment, but about protecting Linda Davis. In an industry as unforgiving as entertainment, where even a vague rumor could destroy a reputation and a future, he believed that silence was the strongest shield for them both. He understood that if their closeness were ever laid bare, Davis's blossoming career could have been overshadowed by unfounded speculation. This reveals that Bill and Linda's relationship was never the scandal Nashville once imagined, but rather a rare kind of loyalty and trust. Between two people separated by a generation existed a unique connection, a bond that needed no definition and no public confirmation. It was a secret, quiet space in Bill Anderson's story, where he was not only a great songwriter and singer, but also a man willing to sacrifice transparency to protect someone else. Linda Davis has always spoken of Bill with respect and gratitude, and for Bill Anderson, acknowledging their relationship at age 87 was not about exposing a long-hidden secret, but about giving Linda Davis her rightful place in history. To make clear that their bond was never a scandal, but a story of loyalty, trust, and humanity that transcended Nashville's prejudices. Legacy and influence. If Bill Anderson's personal life left behind sorrow and regret, his career became living proof of the enduring strength of an artist who never gave up. His legacy in country music is not about glamour, but about continuity, the bridge he built between past and present, and his ability to inspire across generations. With more than 6 decades of songwriting and performing, Bill Anderson wrote hundreds of songs, many of which became milestones in country music. From City Lights, immortalized by Ray Price, to Once a Day setting records with Connie Smith, to Give It Away, the hit that earned George Strait the CMA Song of the Year in 2007, or Whiskey Lullaby, which moved a new generation of listeners through the voices of Brad Paisley and Alison Krauss. 3 generations of artists, from classic legends to modern stars, found their voices within Anderson's songs. This proves he was not merely a man of one era, but a bridge spanning many. Bill's music also functioned as a collective diary for everyday Americans in the second half of the 20th century. He sang of a poor yet proud childhood in Po Folks, of family memories in Mama Sang a Song, of aching love, in tips of my fingers. These small, personal stories formed a larger canvas of society, where the pain, faith, and hopes of working people were carried in lyrics that were simple yet deeply moving. Beyond writing, he played the role of keeper of memories through the show Country's Family Reunion, a place where artists, young and old, gathered to sing, tell stories, and let audiences witness the continuity of a shared legacy. With more than 60 years of dedication, Anderson also became the longest-serving member in the history of the Grand Ole Opry, turning into a living symbol of its sacred stage. Each time Bill stepped onto the Opry's wooden circle, audiences were not only hearing music, they were witnessing history still breathing. Anderson's honors reflect that significance. Inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame, 1975, the National Songwriters Hall of Fame, 1995, and the Country Music Hall of Fame, 2001, three summits that placed him alongside Hank Williams, Loretta Lynn, and Patsy Cline. Yet he always emphasized that trophies and plaques were merely symbols, while the true importance lay in the emotions audiences carried with them after the music ended. In Nashville, he was affectionately called Whisperin Bill. It referred not only to his whisper-like singing style, but also to his humble presence, never loud or boastful, yet always touching hearts deeply. In an entertainment world that often thrives on noise and drama, Bill Anderson proved that sometimes a whisper can echo for a century, and perhaps his greatest legacy was not just his vast catalog of songs or his records at the Opry, but his way of life. He passed on to future generations the lesson that persistence, gratitude, and simple faith are what sustain an artist across time. Bill's personal creed, grateful, thankful, blessed, was not only his own guiding principle, but also a message to anyone searching for meaning in both music and in life. Current life. At 87, Bill Anderson continues to prove that the flame of music within him has never gone out. Though his health no longer allows him to travel as tirelessly as in past decades, Whisperin Bill still appears regularly on the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, a place he has called home for more than 6 decades. With the gentle voice that has become his signature, Anderson steps onto the sacred wooden circle not only as a singer, but as a living witness to the history of country music. Each appearance is not just a performance for the audience, but also a reminder of an entire generation of artists who built Nashville's golden age alongside him. In 2024, Anderson reaffirmed his enduring creativity with the release of the Forevermore EP, September 20th, 2024. The project featured 6 heartfelt songs, highlighted by the ballad "The Last One I'll Forget," a tender whisper about love and memory that many listeners compared to the timeless resonance of "Still." He also released a lyric video for the track, warmly received by both longtime fans and younger listeners. Critics hailed Forevermore as a work of memory and persistence, evidence that Anderson was not simply looking back on the past, but still creating in the present. That same year, his contributions were recognized with several prestigious honors. The Dr. David Godbold Lifetime Achievement Award from the South Carolina Entertainment and Music Hall of Fame, the Industry Impact Award from the Tennessee Association of Broadcasters, and a Lifetime Achievement Award at the Grand Ole Opry's Heroes Salute to Lee Greenwood. These accolades affirmed that both Nashville and the public still regard Bill Anderson as an essential part of country music's ongoing story. By 2025, Anderson had embraced the calm perspective of a man who had lived through both glory and loss. In an early-year interview with Cowboys and Indians, he admitted he was in a state of reflection, but smiling, because after everything, he felt blessed with so much to be thankful for. His words echoed the life philosophy he often repeated: grateful, thankful, blessed. In August 2025, Anderson suffered a minor accident while climbing into bed, injuring muscles or ligaments in his leg. The mishap forced him to cancel scheduled Opry appearances, a writing session with T. Graham Brown, and a planned event at the state fair. Nashville media quickly reported the news, while Anderson updated fans himself on social media, sharing that he was recovering with rest, ice, and pain medication. What touched audiences was not the accident itself, but the way he faced it. Calm, optimistic, and always expressing gratitude for the concern and love people sent his way. Alongside his recovery, Bill began preparing a special vinyl release of Forevermore, with the addition of rare, previously unreleased tracks. It was yet another reminder that even as age limited his physical stamina, his creative spirit still sought new ways to connect with audiences. Today, Bill Anderson chooses a simple life, surrounded by family and close friends. He often shares memories of departed colleagues, Loretta Lynn, George Jones, Conway Twitty, as a way of keeping their legacies alive. For he understands that part of his own legacy lies in retelling the stories of a generation now gone. In his twilight years, Bill has nothing left to prove. He still sings, still writes, still whispers, melodies of love, loss, and gratitude. And it is precisely this persistence that has made him a true icon. A gentle voice, perhaps small amid the noise of Nashville, but one that continues to echo across generations. Bill Anderson's life is not just the story of a country music star, but a living testament to the power of perseverance and gratitude. He has walked through time not in hurried steps, but with steady determination, quietly leaving an indelible mark on the hearts of his listeners. Nearing 90, what he offers us no longer lies in chart positions or bright lights, but in the way a man chooses to live with kindness, remain faithful to his passion, and continue sharing love even as the world around him grows quieter. In a Nashville that is constantly changing, Bill is no longer just an artist. He is a living memory, a bridge between the golden past and the turbulent present. His story reminds us that sometimes a genuine whisper can leave a deeper echo than the loudest roar. Share your thoughts in the comments below, so together we can keep Bill Anderson's melodies alive in our hearts. And don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to join us for the next stories about the legends who have shaped and continue to shape the music and culture of a generation.